Hey, hey. So, I am going to be going live on multiple places. So, let me go ahead and get that started. But if you are joining, let me know where you are in the world and what the name of your book is and or what project you're working on right now. So, I'm sure y'all have seen and have been on the interwebs today and noticed that Facebook was down, which meant Instagram was acting up, and then also Threads was acting up, and then also apparently Chatty was cutting up as well. And so, I just want to say if you're an author and you don't have your email together, please get your email together because it's one of the ways you can still communicate with your audience when everything else is going bananas. So, if you need help getting started with your email, then I will drop a link in the chat to a free class that I have for email marketing. That's not what we're talking about tonight, but I will add that for you in case you need to get that together because social media does what social media wants to do. So, all right, I am Ashley, the owner of Shop Publishing, and I help authors get from the page to the people with efficient and effective marketing strategies so they can sell more books, reach more readers, make more money, and change more lives. And so tonight we are going to be talking about how to accelerate your success in 2025. And so I won't be before you long, like the pastors and the reverends like to say, but there are some things I wanted to share with you today that I was going to get on live earlier and share, but like I just said, the tech was not teching. Social media was out for on multiple platforms for multiple people. So, all right, now this idea kind of came from a recording that I did for my private podcast for my book that's about pre-orders. That's going to be released next month. And so if you don't already have your copy, you can grab yours at Profitable Self Publishing, and I'll put that in the chat. But as a part of the book launch, I created a private podcast to be able to allow book purchasers to go behind the scenes with me to see what the pre-order process looks like and to be able to understand the behind the scenes aspect and the rationale why I'm deciding to organize things the way in which I am for my book launch. And so while recording that podcast, I was actually re-listening to it today because episode 7 dropped today. So if you've already pre-ordered the book, then check your inbox because episode 7 released today. And so as I was listening back to the podcast, which I don't typically listen back to my recordings, I know you should. That's a strategy that I suggest to people, but I typically don't. And so I happened to be listening to it today, and there were just some moments in there I'm like, I gotta share this with more people who are not just pre-order book purchasers, but just authors and business owners who might be trying to think about how they want to move differently in the next year or even the next couple weeks before the year is out, because you don't have to wait until the new year to go in a different direction or to make changes to what is happening in your book business or your general business. And so I said, okay, let me do a live and share some of that insight. And so these are going to be 3 ways to accelerate your success in 2025. And I'm going to take you through the process of what I had to do in order to accelerate my success. And so for that context, let's take a little bit of a rewind backwards. About March of last year, I was 8 months pregnant and found out that I was no longer going to be able to be employed at my prior place of employment. They were dissolving positions, including mine, in the education space. And at that point, it was either you can apply for a different position because they were just getting rid of my position, or you can apply for the same position because they kind of reworked it. And so, or you can work somewhere else. And so I took the opportunity to reapply, re-interview, still didn't get the job. And so at the same time, my son was, so I was pregnant, I was 8 months pregnant, and then I also had a high risk pregnancy. And so if you are someone who's had a baby over 35, you are considered geriatric in the medical space, even though you're not geriatric. And so high risk because of that. Then they thought that my son was going to have a heart defect. Then they also thought that he had a medical issue in his abdominal wall not closing. And so dealing with all of that on top of job loss, it was something where I was like, okay, I'm really going to focus on my family, focus on myself, focus on getting the baby here healthy. And so after that, I was in a space of, okay, oh, and by the way, he's fine. He's 18 months old and he's perfectly fine. Praise Jesus for that. And so a little after that, I finished up my last day of work because I finished out my contract. And then I was in a space where I wasn't really quite sure of myself. So after you have a child, in general, your confidence can kind of just be all over the place. And then adding on top of that job loss, the up and down roller coaster of a high risk pregnancy and things like that. I was just in a space of like, okay, I really want to think about what I want to focus on. And so I decided to take that time to really focus on my book business and helping other authors to be able to publish profitably. And so in that space, I'm thinking, okay, well, and I have notes because I got to stay on track. I'm thinking, okay, so how can I do this? And where even am I? Because in that space of just going on this emotional roller coaster, though my faith really grew because it was a situation of, okay, this is a mustard seed type faith situation because of everything that they were telling me was going to be wrong with my child, and then also just dealing with shenanigans in the workplace. And thanks for the love in the chat. Some of you already know this story a little bit, but I had to really reevaluate who I was and what I wanted to do. And so spent the rest of the year really focusing on that, publishing my cookbook that came out last year, at the end of last year. And then in this year, thinking, okay, how do I want to show up in this space? And so I really had to do this first step, which is to evaluate. So when you are trying to accelerate your success, when you're trying to show up in a space and really decide who you want to be, you have to really evaluate the things in which you are going to be doing. You have to evaluate what's important to you. You have to think about, how am I showing up? You have to evaluate, what kind of people am I attracting? I work with authors and business owners, and often authors say, okay, well, I don't know who my readers are. I'm trying to sell my book. People don't buy my book, things of that sort. And you have to really evaluate the way in which you are showing up in spaces. Meaning, are you showing up in places where your ideal customer is? Are you showing up in places where your ideal customer may be in the future? You have to really think about your customer's journey and where they're going to be and meet them there. And so I had to think about, okay, well, how am I showing up? Where am I going, and how can I be more visible? And so earlier this year, I made the decision to decide to be consistent on YouTube. I think it was April. Yes. So in April, I decided, okay, I'm going to post a video once a week on YouTube, and then also continue that process and share it out on other platforms. And so I've been able to consistently do that. If I missed a week, then I doubled it up the next week. And then also decided that I want to really lean into being consistent in other areas. And so I had to evaluate the ways in which I was showing up and to see if my efforts were matching my results. Because sometimes we can think, oh, okay, well, I'm not reaching the level of success that I want to reach, or I'm not hitting the marks that I want to hit. But you really have to think, are you giving the output that matches the success that you desire? Are you matching energy? Like, are you doing what you need to be doing to be where you want to be? And honestly, at that point, I was like, well, I'm not. So let me change that. And part of that is because with the transition from my previous job, it also meant that, okay, well, if you're not working full time, then the baby's going to stay home with you. So then I got thrust into being a stay at home mom, which is something that I never thought I would be doing. And I'm the type that's like, no, I like to work, as you can see, because y'all see me doing stuff, but I never thought that was going to be what was happening. And so I think about that of like, when we make plans, then God laughs at us. And so I'm sure he was cackling at me when I was like, yeah, I'll never be a stay-at-home mom. Here I am 18 months later as a stay-at-home mom. And then also I've previously said, well, I don't think I really want to be a full-time entrepreneur, because of the roller coaster, the instability, things like that, of not knowing when your income's going to come in. But here I am 18 months later as a full-time entrepreneur. And it's not to say that that's something I'm always going to do for the rest of my life. However, that's the season I'm in right now. And so I really had to think, okay, how do I want to make this work? How can I stand out in this space? How can I be known for something? And so with that, you have to decide what you want to be known for. And with that, that also is involving, what is it that makes you come alive? So what are the things that make you feel like you are walking in your purpose and making you feel like you are actually helping people and being beneficial to the world? So what gifts are you giving to the world? And so for me, I had to really spend time thinking about that and really consider, okay, well, previously there's things that I've done just because I have been good at doing them, but it wasn't necessarily something that I liked doing. And so I spent time in prayer, spent time talking to friends, things of that sort, hired a coach. Shout out to Audrey Richmond. She's my mentor and coach at this time. And thought about, okay, what are the things that I like to do? And so with that, I decided, okay, I love marketing. I love helping authors sell their books, because I believe that is so important for you as an author. If you're going to spend all this time writing a book, you're going to spend all this time pouring your heart and your soul out into this work, then it's so important for you to be able to get that in front of the right people. And so with that, I said, okay, that's going to be my focus. And then I also love teaching. Like I said before, like I'm in the education space, or I've been in the education space for over a decade. And the transition to working with entrepreneurs and authors is is a natural one in the sense of teaching, because I love teaching, and it's just a teaching to a different person essentially. So instead of teaching kids, I teach grown-ups. And so I said, okay, those are the two things I'm going to focus on. And so once I decided, and I'm sorry, once I evaluated what it is that I wanted to be known for, the things that I wanted to show up as, then that's when it became, okay, I need to lean into those things. I need to spend time researching those things. I need to spend time seeing how I can elevate myself in that area, or in those areas, so that way I can be known for those things and also be the best of the best at it, because we're not trying to do things halfway over here. If I'm going to spend my time doing this, I want to make sure I'm doing it in a way that I can help the most people and be the most successful. And so with that, that also took some time to really think about where I was in the space of confidence, because child, at the at the let's see, over about a 8 to 12 month period, ending, I'll say I'm coming out of it now, but there was a period in my life where I was just not confident in what I was doing. And part of that came from being in a toxic work environment where I was just really belittled for the things that I was doing that were actually part of my job description. But it was something that really stifled my unique gifts and abilities. And so I had to unlearn that. I had to, and I'm still unlearning it. I had to unlearn the aspect of saying, okay, well, I'm not going to shrink myself because other people are not comfortable with what I'm producing, or other people feel as if I'm moving too quickly for them, when in actuality, that's kind of one of my gifts, of being able to analyze something, flip it over, turn it around, things like that. And so I had to realize that those are things that can be positive in business. Those are things that can be helpful as a consultant, as a coach, that I'm able to work with clients and help them to see what exactly is it that they need help on. Like, oh, okay, well, actually, if you just fix this thing and do this thing, you'll be Gucci. Like, you just go to the next step and that's it. And so for them, it's very helpful and it's very transformative, because they're able to see, okay, well, I couldn't see that thing, but Ashley can see that thing. And so I had to come out, I had to unlearn a lot of the things that helped me to stay safe in a different environment, and to see that those things are going to be things that are helpful in business. So hopefully that makes sense. And if you're joining me in the chat, we're talking about 3 ways to accelerate your success in 2025. And so with this is for authors and business owners. And we're on the first step, which is to evaluate. And so to evaluate the ways in which you are showing up in your spaces. So showing up as an author, showing up as a business owner, because all of that's going to affect the ways in which you are attracting your customers, clients, and book buyers. Now, if you are thinking, okay, maybe you're in a season of where confidence isn't really your forte right now, or you are working through that, then I encourage you to do something I do, which is keep a little, like a brag folder. And even if you work a 9 to 5, this is actually a great idea for you to do too. It's where that you are able to take screenshots of like accolades, feedback you've gotten, reviews if you're an author. So taking screenshots of that and putting them in a folder. I keep mine in a Google Photos folder. And it's something where if you are feeling kind of down, or you're feeling like not as confident in yourself, it's a place where you can go and look and say, wow, like I've done all these things. I have these people that love me. I have these people that really believe in my success and things of that sort. And so, hey, Paula, thanks. And so with that, just suggestion for you to help along with that. All right, so my next thing I had to do was step 2 to accelerate your success was to elevate. So first you have to evaluate what it is that you are currently doing and how you can move in a different direction. And then your next step is to elevate. So when you are seeing where you are before and seeing where you want to go, often that requires some elevation. It requires you to step outside of being who you previously have been. And it also requires you to look at things differently. And sometimes you got to get outside help. And so for me, that looked like reading books. And I'm going to share some examples with you of books that I am either in the process of reading or that I have already read. And so one of them is Uncloned Marketing. And this is actually a book I read back in 2020 when I was doing my first book launch. It's by Audrey Richmond. And if you need guidance on like foundational marketing principles in an easy to process way, definitely get this book. And then one thing I noticed also is that I wanted to move to a different category of authors that I want to help or business owners that I want to help. And so previously I realized I was attracting a lot of folks who either didn't want to do the work or who were not committed to the things that they said they wanted. And so, for context, since I work with authors who are self published, often it's you're doing it by yourself, you're doing the work, or you're hiring help. And so, I was originally attracting people who wanted like the cheapest, the fastest, the easiest way to get things done. And honestly, 9 times out of 10, those are not the best clients and they're not the best people to try to give consulting or coaching guidance to because they often don't want to do the work and they don't really understand the process behind it and aren't interested in trying to understand the process. They're just like, I really want to get this done. What's the cheapest way? Not what's the best way. And often the cheapest way is not the best way. That's something where you as a business owner, you as an author, you are going to have to, if you're still in that place, you're going to have to understand that typically if it's cheap, it's generally not very good quality. If it is fast, quality sometimes suffers as well because it takes time. Greatness takes time to build. And so this time period I'm talking to you about is over the course of, I want to say, probably from about like April to now. So 6, 7 months. And May, June, July, August, September, October, November, December. Yeah, 7, 8 months at this point because it's December. And so it's something where when I am thinking about how I want to show up, I have to be mindful of that I'm attracting the right audience and attracting the right crowd. So that way those people are understanding when I'm giving guidance or giving feedback on certain things. And so with you, with your book or you with your business, you want to think about the people that you're attracting. You want to find people who are similar to you in terms of your work ethic. You want to find people who are accepting of the advice you might give to them. And then if you are an author, you want to find folks who are willing to actually read your book and actually feel okay with you giving them advice in a book or with you providing your tips and resources that way. And so that's one thing there. And then another book that I read, so it kind of led me to that area, is Marketing to the Affluent, and this is by Dan Kennedy, and he has a whole series of books of different like marketing for. I got a couple on my shelf, but my son knocked them over. Um, for social media, for direct marketing, where you are marketing directly to the person as opposed to using a different platform. And so this is a book that's helped me to be able to change the language that I'm using to be able to attract the right audience. And then another thing I realized is that though I talk so much about book marketing and I talk so much about self-publishing, that I don't have a book that's about self-publishing or about marketing. And so that yet I'm in the process of finishing it. And so that was something that was very important to me as well, to add that to my list of books, because my books are about the industries that I was in before focusing on self-publishing and book marketing. But if I really want to be the expert in self-publishing, I want to be the expert in helping self-published authors be profitable, then I need to have books myself. And so that's why I am coming out with my book that's on pre-orders. And so it's the first of, let's say, 4 to 5 books, 4 to 6 books that I'm working on that are either about book marketing or self-publishing. And so this is a way that I can elevate my brand and elevate my expertise by packaging my knowledge into a book. And so with that, I've also been able to work with clients in the coaching space in terms of pre-order. So I have a 8-week coaching program called Pre-Order Profits. And so the book will be similar to that, but in a book form as opposed to a coaching cohort, because I understand that people are at different price points and people have different things that they're dealing with, or people just learn differently. And so providing the book and the coaching program are great options to be able to account for those who have different styles that they prefer to learn information. And so with that, reading books, writing books, and also taking courses is another way to accelerate your success. I know that I have, of course, always valued education as a former educator, and both of my parents are educators as well, and my grandma was also, and cousins and all that jazz. And I know it can feel kind of like, oh, everybody has a course, da, da, da. But like courses work. Like they work. It's something where it's so wild to me that people value traditional education, so like college, things like that, certificate programs. And then when it comes to online courses, people think, oh, well, I mean, that's not really going to be helpful. That's not going to be beneficial. there are tons of courses that I have taken and that I've gotten value from and that I've been able to use and apply the systems or processes or whatever the case may be to be able to get a result. And I say that because I have seen business owners online and authors online be like, oh, of course this person has a course about that thing. Yes, people have created courses because the amount of time and energy that it takes to explain to someone else about the in-depth detail of things that are inside of a course, why would you not package that up in a way that it's easy for people to go at their own pace, for people to review information, to go back and forth, to be able to apply the information? It just makes sense. And so courses are a great way to be able to elevate yourself and to work with someone in even a mentor capacity, because maybe you're not able to afford their high ticket services or their top tier services, but you're able to work with them in a course format. And so you're getting to have a way to connect with them that way. And so definitely taking courses. And then also for me, really studying my audience was important because, of course, you as an author or a business owner, that's one of the number one rules of marketing is to understand who you are selling to and understand your reader, understand your buyer. And so really taking time to research, really taking time to put myself in spaces that my ideal audience is in existence is so important. And that's something you should be doing too, continually, not just something where you're like, okay, well, I did it one time. I know where people are and I know how they are. Hey, Katina. Hey, I don't know who the Sui is. Sorry, your YouTube name's coming up, but hey, thanks for tuning in. And so really understanding who your audience is key. So for me, I had to make sure that I am understanding where they like to hang out, what they like to do. Oh no, this is my real hair. This is not a wig. So understanding what they like to do, what it is that they like to hang out at, where they like to hang out, things like that. And so it's something where you have to be mindful of what your audience is doing, where they are, where they're moving to, and be there and be someone who understands that they are changing, because this is something that my mentor teaches, Audrey Richmond, is that people always talk about target audience and ideal us customer, but sometimes you have a target situation, and so that means that maybe you are not always going to be in that same space, and so it's something where you are having to you're having to adjust. Like, for example, if you are a new mom, you're not always going to be a new mom, and that's what my first book was about for first time moms. You are not always going to be a new mom. You're going to eventually not be a new mom at some point. And so your situation changes, or maybe you're newly postpartum or things of that sort. It's something where you have to be mindful of how your audience is and where you are navigating in that space. And so then also investing in yourself. And so this is something that I continually do. I try to at least make a 4-figure investment in myself throughout the course or each year. So I try to make a 4-figure investment in myself at least each year. And so with that, this year's investment was doing the Uncloned certification with Audrey Richmond. And so I am a Uncloned Marketing Pro, which means I'm able to use the proprietary systems and frameworks from Audrey Richmond to be able to support clients. And so that looks like being able to do website audits using the framework that Uncloned Marketing uses, being able to do social media audits, things like that, and then also to create marketing plans that are uncloned. And so if you're not familiar with her as a brand, or her and her brand, it's something where you're able to, where she focuses on really being the obvious choice in your industry. And so with that, that is something that was hard fought. It was a lot of work, but I knew that if I wanted to be the best of the best when it came to book marketing, or marketing in general, because she focuses on general marketing for small business owners. I knew that if I wanted to be the best of the best, I needed to go to the best, and I needed to go to someone who was going to challenge me and push me and make it so that I'm able to really focus on how I can show up in a space where it's kind of oversaturated. So being uncloned means that you are able to stand out and being able to be the obvious choice in your industry. So when people come to her, they know, okay, I'm going to get a bomb situation happening. It's going to help me to think out of the box, things like that. And so I know, okay, if I go work with her and she says I'm certified on clone, I'm like, okay, bet, like this is a good, a good position to be in. And so it's been a great experience to work with her. And so, yeah, Katina said she loves her. And then look, Katina also said, let me see if I can add your quote to the broadcast. Katina, let me see if it'll pop up. For her, she said, one moment, move you on up. Okay, so for her, she said that that's me. My customers are different and they change because of industry churn. Exactly right. And so it's something where it can be talking about the target situation. It's something where you have to really focus on how your customer evolves and how they are growing and flourishing, and then grow with them, because maybe your customers or your audience from previous years might have wanted something different than they do now. And so with that, so for example, I might write a toddler book because my first book was about having your first child during the postpartum period for the first 12 months of your child. And then now my kid is 5, but I could have written a toddler book, and then I have another kid that's eventually going to be a toddler. And so really growing with your audience is important and key, and that can help you accelerate your success as well. All right, so I want to make sure I have everything on that sticky note so I don't forget anything. And then also not giving up on yourself. So talking about going back to the certification process. So for that, it was something where I don't have a background in marketing in terms of from an educational standpoint. My background is in curriculum and instruction and education. I have a minor in Spanish. I didn't have any background in marketing. It's just something that I've been self-taught in. And so with that, with the certification program, when it came time to actually think about signing up for it, I had to think, okay, one, getting over the imposter syndrome of, I mean, you have a background as a teacher. Why, like, you're moving in this direction, like this is going to be different. People might expect you to move differently. People might expect that this is something that is just different. Like anytime you're trying to show up in a space that is not what people know you for, it can be a little scary. And also just internally of just thinking like, okay, am I good enough for this program? Am I good enough for this to actually be able to support other people with their marketing in terms of non-authors? Because I was already working with authors to support their marketing, but this program actually helped to boost my confidence in terms of helping all small business owners with their marketing. And it was something I was already doing, but I just wasn't doing it in a structured way. And so it's something where you have to think about, okay, if this is the space you want to move in, if this is how you want to be, whatever it is that you're focusing on in this next year, do it in a way that you go full force. Don't do it halfway. I was going to say, I'm not going to curse, but don't do it halfway. Do it where you can show up in a way that gives you the permission to be excellent. Because I was finding for myself that I was cowering and I was not fully showing up as myself. And it took a couple pep talks from Audrea, and then also some kind of Jesus meetings with myself of like, girl, you are God's masterpiece. Ephesians 2:10, like, and you all are God's masterpiece as well. Really thinking about, okay, if this is what you want to do and this is what you want to be known for, then dig in and tap in and do what you need to do. And so for me, that looked like, okay, well, I have deadlines that were part of the program where at that time, and even now, at that time, I'm breastfeeding throughout the night. And so my child's waking up multiple times and dealing with a kid that's under 1 and adjusting to this new life of like, don't this new like stay-at-home mom life of like figuring that out and navigating all these different things. And it's like, okay, you have to really prioritize yourself and really prioritize the things that are important to you, because I know in the long run that it's something where I knew in the long run that it was something where that was going to help me to be able to help my kids and to be able to create a path for them, as well as to be important to me and have something for myself. Because as moms, it's so easy to put everybody else ahead of you, put everybody else in front of you, and not really focus on you. And so, and I know all of you are not moms, but just throwing that out there from my personal experience. And so, okay, yes, Katina said that you can't give up, and she was almost there, but God. Exactly right. And so if you have to just take a beat, take a step back, and then re-up, that's totally fine, because it's something where you are not going to regret the results that you get. If you're doing the work, the results will come. It might take longer than you expect, but the results will come. And so stick with it. And so that is for Elevate. And so if you're just joining us, we're talking about 3 ways to accelerate your success in 2025. Don't feel like you have to wait until 2025 to have this success. But the first one was to evaluate. So evaluate what is going on in your life and things that are happening. And then the next one is to elevate. So invest in yourself in terms of the things you want to see and the things that you are doing. And let me add one more thing to that. Investing doesn't always have to be money. And I know it can be really easy to think, oh, okay, people talk about investments, it's always about financials, and it's not. Investments can also look like time. Investments can look like energy. Now, if you don't have money, then you're going to need to invest the time and the energy. And there are times in my life where I'm like, okay, money's a little tight here, so I'm not going to be able to invest in this program, but I know that I can read a book. I know I can rent things from the library. I know I can watch some YouTube videos. And not to say that those are going to be the same things or give you the same results as investing in a coach or investing in a program or things like that. However, it doesn't mean that you are completely helpless and that you can't do anything in that moment. And so there are times where it makes more sense for you to invest in a book or invest in the time to read the book or an audiobook to listen to it. Audible has a sale. I don't know if it's still on right now, but it was on this past week and it was a good sale. And so you have to think about how to invest in yourself. And then when it comes to investing your finances, that doesn't mean that you don't have to do the work. So, like, you can invest the time, you can invest the money, but if you're investing the money, you still have to do the work. There's still things that have to happen. Even with my done for you clients, there are things that they have to do. So, I have done for you marketing where I create authors' emails for them, I write their social media posts, I don't use Chatty. No shade to Chatty. I don't use Chatty. I write them myself. And then also I find places for people, for them to be seen. So podcasts for them to appear on, things like that. So even with all that, even though I'm doing those placements for those people, they still have to do the work. They still have to provide me with the things that I need in order to complete the task. And so it's something where investments are either financial, time, or energy, because energy could happen with both of those. And thank you, Katina. Good shout out to you. Thank you for scribing in the chat. Appreciate you. And then my last way to accelerate your success in 2025 is to execute. Now, once you have evaluated what you need to be doing, once you have elevated yourself to actually invest in yourself to do those things, then you actually have to continuously do the thing. So executing. So for me, that looks like actually spending the time and energy to do the work. And I know that that's not bright and shiny, but at the end of the day, nothing beats doing the work. Point blank, period. You have to send the emails. You have to show up live. Like, I could have just said, I don't want to do this anymore because I planned to do this earlier today, but the internet, the interwebs were not working. And so you have to do the work. You have to let people know that you have something to sell. You have to tell people, hey, I can help you with this. You have to come up with systems and processes that help you to be able to let people know that you are the person for this thing. So you're the go-to person for this thing. And you have to be mindful that people are not always going to see your stuff. Like today, like I said earlier at the beginning of this live, Facebook was down, Instagram was down, ChatGPT was down, Threads was down because it's part of Meta. And so you have to understand that everybody's not going to see your stuff all the time. So you have to show up consistently. You have to be present. You have to be visible. People are not going to know, oh, okay, you talk about this if you're not talking about the thing. And so that looks like not necessarily being the faceless brand. Sometimes you're going to have to show your face. I know faceless accounts on Instagram are all the rage right now, but for certain things, you have to be inside of it. And I know that can be scary. I know that can be something where you're like, oh, well, I don't really want it to be about me. And it doesn't have to be about you, but it has to be something where people understand that they can purchase things in a way from you that will help them. And I know that can be frightening, or like, I don't want to be in front. But when you think about it for yourself, at least from a small business standpoint, typically you like to hear the background of the brand. You like to hear what's going on. You like to know who you're purchasing from. And there's some people who will, like, there's people who have bought books from me just because I'm a Black woman. They say, oh, you have a book on the Daniel fast and I saw you're a Black woman, add to cart. Some people just want to support you because they see what you look like, or they are in that same group, or they understand, like, oh, okay, they sound like me, they look like me, they're relatable. And so you have to show up. And so for me, that looks like creating books. So I mentioned to you earlier, the previous books that I have are not about book marketing or self-publishing, but that changes next month because my book on pre-orders is coming out next month. And so actually, let me add that to the chat. But you can visit profitableselfpublishing.com and you can pre-order your copy. And one moment, let me type that out because I know it does affect, it can make it clacky on the audio, so you might not be able to hear. But yeah, so you can visit Profitable Self Publishing and get a copy of the book, get a pre-order copy of the book, and then you'll get access to the private podcast where I go through this process of sharing the pre-order, so that way you're able to understand why I'm doing what I'm doing and also to help design your own pre-orders. And so because I noticed, like, hey, I don't have a book that I can just give to my clients as a gift. I don't have a book that I can direct people to buy instead of telling them, oh, go check out my YouTube channel or go read this blog post on my site. Like, as somebody who supports authors, this is a no-brainer. I think it's just something I hadn't really had time to sit down and do. And so now this is the first book. It's on pre-orders, but I plan to release additional books to be able to support authors in all aspects of self-publishing and marketing, because it's something where books are things that transcend socioeconomic status, racial divides, political associations, things like that. People read books from all walks of life. And so having your expertise in a book is key. And so that's why I'm working on that now. And then as well for executing, looking at your offers and really evaluating what it is that you have. And so for me, I'm evaluating the products and services that I offer, so my books that I have, as well as the services that I provide to customers, and looking and seeing, okay, what are the things that I want to be known for? What are the things that I want to continue to deliver? What are the things that I want people to be able to come to me for? And then focusing on those, and then getting rid of things that don't serve you anymore. There are some services that I had before that I will not be doing anymore, in terms of some formatting and cover designing as like a la carte. So I'm really getting rid of all of my a la carte services when it comes to publishing and marketing. I'm focusing on people who want the entire package or who want to have one of the tiers in my packages. And part of that is because I feel like the people that I've worked with that aren't doing the packages are not getting the best experience they could get, because people come to me and they say, oh, well, okay, can you help me with this upload? So can you help upload my book to Amazon? Can you help upload my book to Ingram Spark? And previously I said yes, because I'm knowledgeable about how to do it. But it ends up being where they are having to have a longer experience, because if they would have just come to me at first, like from jump, it would have been done a lot sooner, because we're having to go back and fix their files because the person who did their files did it wrong or things like that. And so I do have somebody to refer them back to in case they still need that service. So I am working with a different publishing agency to be able to help with that. But it's something where I don't necessarily want to work with just those clients directly, because I feel like they're getting less of an experience than they could get. So when it comes to your books and your offerings and things of that sort, hey over there on Instagram, hey Brittany, hey Jasmine, hey Stay Lit Fit, and hey author Charlene. Sorry, I didn't look over for a sec. I got things going on multiple screens, going live multiple places, but evaluating what kind of things you're offering and evaluating what kind of things you want to be known for. So let's say you have a book that you've written previously and you no longer want to be known for the topic of that book. It's totally okay to not continue to market that book, and totally okay to not continue to offer products or services related to that book if that's not who you want to be anymore. It's all about how you want to show up in that space. And then you want to think about your services that align with your goals and your desires. And so when it comes to, and this is something I mentioned on the podcast on episode 7, which came out today, for pre-orders, you want to think about services that align with what you want to do. And so if you have a service or you have some kind of offer or event that you've done previously and you said, okay, I don't really like how this event makes me feel, I don't really like selling this thing, then stop selling the thing. And I know that sounds like, well, duh, but it can be very freeing to just hear that you don't have to do certain things just because you've done it before. So it's okay to reinvent yourself. It's okay to be somebody different or show up differently for yourself if that's how you want to operate. So just throwing that out there, giving you permission to do that. And then lastly, another thing I'm working on to elevate and accelerate my success, elevate and accelerate my success in 2025 is to create my own frameworks. And so if you're not familiar with that, it's essentially a way to create your own systems and processes of doing things that are repeatable. And so I've already had these in terms of working with clients, but it wasn't something that I had written down in a way that someone else could repeat it. So meaning that if I have an assistant, which I do have an assistant, but let's say down the line my assistant becomes someone who actually works more directly with the client in terms of getting a desired result, now I can focus on training that person or using a standard operating procedure to be able to have that person support my clients, as opposed to it always having to be me. And this is something that I'm also learning from Audrey in general, or that I've learned over the past couple months from Audrey, is really multiplying yourself and multiplying yourself in a way that other people can work with you or other people can learn from you without having to directly be like working with you. And it's something where you can prevent burnout this way, you can help to reach a wider audience, you can make more money this way. And so that's the process and the approach that I'm taking futuristically and moving on down the line, because you never know what can happen, and not in like an ominous or a negative way, but you never know what can happen. So for example, at the end of my last book launch, my grandma passed away. And so it was where I was packaging up the orders, taping up the boxes, took them to the post office. The baby was cooperating because I had to take him with me to drop off the packages. And I remember thinking, okay, oh, this is great. Okay, I had a great day, got all these packages done. He took a nap long enough for me to ship out all the pre-orders. And then later during bath time, I found out that my grandma passed. And I'm like, oh, okay. So I thought this was a great day. This is not a great day. And so it was at the end of my book launch. And so I said, let me go ahead and wrap this up and just kind of tie a bow on it. And the reality of that is just like, you just never know. Things can happen. But also, you don't always want to be beholden to whatever your business or your books are needing. You want to be able to build in breaks for yourself. You want to be able to not feel like you've created a second job with your book or your business. You don't want to be so tied to this work that you don't even get to enjoy the fruits of the labor of the work. And that was something I am actively working on, to be able to create these assets, to create these things, to then not have to be chained to my business. And so where things are happening on automation, things are happening where I'm able to support people and I'm still able to get paid while I'm on vacation, or still able to help people by them watching a course or watching a training or attending a challenge or something like that, where it's not that I'm going to be hands off, but just that I'm going to be able to support people in a way that's not always me having to show up live. And so that's another way that I will be executing in 2025, to be able to multiply myself without having to always be on, because it can be exhausting to be on. Hey, Natalie. So it can be exhausting to be on all the time. And so creating things that are outside of your book and is an extension of your book is key, because then that can help you to be able to multiply yourself without having to feel drained. So, all right, that was my last point. And I didn't say earlier, if you had questions, to drop them in the chat. But if you have questions, drop them in the chat. And so just to go over real quick the different ways that I'm going to be accelerating in 2025. I was about to say 2024. Woo. Okay, accelerating 2025 is first evaluating. So evaluating things that I have that no longer serve me when it comes to my business operations, when it comes to my books, and then making the move to elevate. And that looks like expanding my products to things that are going to support my readers, going to support my authors in a way to help them accelerate their business goals. And so that looks like my book that's coming out next month, teaching authors how to pre-order, or how to host their own pre-orders profitably. And you can visit Profitable Self-Publishing to grab that. And then third, I'm going to execute. So actually do the work, which I've been doing, do the work, but continue to do the work to show up for folks that need it, because it's so important that you are visible in this space, and so important that people can see you, because it takes anywhere between 7 to 20 touch points meaning like seeing your post, reading an email by you, attending a live by you, things of that sort, for people to actually purchase from you. And so the same is true for you with your books and with your business. So being visible is so important. And then this last one I didn't add on there because it actually doesn't follow my methods, but being consistent. And so this is something where I have personally been really working on this as far as all aspects of my life. I've noticed that I can be consistent during short periods. And so I'm really challenging myself to push past that, to be able to be consistent for longer periods. And so with my YouTube, like I mentioned earlier, I've been really consistent about posting videos on there, and I've seen the growth within that time period. So back in April, I decided to post once a week, and then also did some batching with that, meaning pre-recording items to be able to schedule them out, which was very helpful. And then I'm going to also work to be consistent with other areas of my life, so that way I can show up the way that I want to, and also not be drained in the process. And so with that, let me check the chat and make sure I don't see any questions that are in there. And then Sui, you were asking about hair stuff. Send me a message and I will answer those later, because those are not about book things, but thank you for the compliments. Okay, so a few more seconds. Let me check on Instagram. I don't see any questions here. So thank you for watching, and I appreciate it. Let me know in the chat what you are going to evaluate, elevate, and execute in 2025. Have a good one.